And then I just looked out the window and that's not happening.
It was kind of like the storm yesterday. It blew in really fast.
When was this? How did I miss that?
It was the week before Cherry Festival. They like rushed to get it open. Cherry Festival.
I'm very excited about DIY.
I was too.
Oh, so was it just kind of mixed in with the water and they weren't sure of it? Well, I mean,
I wasn't there when it
The weather
happened.
needs to move
We
the
got there the
rain
next
out of
day
here.
because we were
Yeah.
the parks open. We were up there visiting my mom, and we saw guys with things of bleach.
Hello.
City workers out there with buckets of bleach.
If anybody wants
That
that.
doesn't look good.
no. That's not good enough.
All right, so everyone who's going to be here,
Everybody's
that we're
gonna be
expecting
here.
is
Get
here.
by.
You guys all logged in other than hard copy, ready to go? All right, let's see, what's today? I'd like to call to order the September 12th, 2013 Ferndale Planning Commission meeting. Roll call, please.
Azar?
Here.
Vitrino? Baker? Forrest?
Here.
Piana?
Here.
Lawton?
Here.
Clark? Brazen?
Here.
Rodiger?
Here. Okay, a motion to excuse the absent planning commissioners?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next up is approval of our agenda. Any modifications to the agenda this evening? Not seeing any, I'll take a motion to approve.
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Thanks, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, next up is the minutes from our last meeting, which was held on July 10th, 2013. Any edits, or otherwise I'll take a motion to approve as submitted.
I move to approve the minutes as submitted.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that brings us to our first item of business this evening. Under old business, we have the FLAX Construction Company. Derek, you want to do a brief introduction and then frame us up for our discussion?
Sure. Good evening, Commissioners. As you guys are aware, previously at a Planning Commission meeting, the applicant and the representative, or the owner and the representative for FLAX Construction appeared before the Planning Commission to discuss the possibilities of a conditional rezoning for two pieces of parcel or property located on the east side of Livernois between 8 and 9 Mile. FLAX Construction has been located there for several years. When the city rezoned the property to mixed use, contractors' offices became an existing non-conforming use on the site. And they, as the Planning Commission is aware, is allowed to continue in perpetuity where they're at, but the non-conforming sections of the city zoning ordinances prevent any expansion, alteration, or any other activity that would increase the non-conformance on the site. Recently, a piece of property just south of their existing site, the previous Rose Cement site, became available, and the applicant approached staff about the possibility of purchasing that site, combining it with theirs, and expanding their operations. When they were informed of the circumstances surrounding the existing nonconformance, they requested and wanted to know what their options were. We discussed the possibility of rezoning or conditional rezoning as a consideration for the Planning Commission to allow the expansion of the operation and to meet the intent or the design intent of the mixed-use zoning district. They appeared before the Planning Commission previously with a plan that the Planning Commission had several comments on and concerns with regarding the potential for a conditional rezoning application. Since that time, the applicants have modified their plan, revised it, resubmitted it along with a letter in an attempt to address some of those concerns and ask for the opportunity to be back here in front of the Planning Commission to present their ideas and thoughts about the plan and to hear what the Planning Commission's thoughts are before moving forward with an application. So unless there is any other questions, that's what we have in front of us tonight.
Okay, thank you for that. Gentlemen, if you want to come up, it has been a little bit since we had our discussion. I believe it was back in March. So if you can maybe highlight the changes you've made based on the last meeting, I think that would be helpful. Anything else you think would be helpful to start off our discussion?
Okay, first, my name is Sam Dorchin, Dorchin Martin Associates at 29895 Greenfield in Southfield. With me is Alan Jawad, the owner of the FLAX Construction Company. I have some extra copies of the drawings if any of you need them.
Maybe you bring a couple up. That would be helpful.
Sure.
Township.
So the plan we're looking at now is the new proposed plan.
Yes. This is a much changed proposal. Let me go over them, but first let me say that, it should be pretty obvious to you all that Mr. Jawad wants to keep that company on Livernois, in Ferndale. It's a well-established site. A lot of people know about it and recognize it, and probably would feel bad if it wasn't there. I personally am familiar with Livernois between 8 and 9 Mile Road because I've traveled it for the last 60 years, so before a lot of you were born. What we did in response to your comments, and we took them all seriously, let me point out a lot of the changes. First of all, as far as the parking goes, we've divided it into a pretty clear two-section plan. To the north, and if you have that in front of you, we propose to take down a garage wing that took up a lot of the north property line and exposed an existing two-story portion towards the rear of the site. And I want to point out that on the north half, all of the ground level footprint is existing, and you'll see the dotted lines where the existing garage wing was taken out. This has allowed us to provide 13 parking spaces in that area. That is primarily for passenger cars, and there is a portion of that lower level that is used for one of the businesses that FLAX Construction does, is provide services for the handicapped, and that would be a showroom that people could see handicap showers, the handicap bathtubs that are now so popular, other things like that. The additional office space on the second floor at the front, at the east end of the existing building, is done to provide some of the space that is lost from the garage wing. Some of it was used for office, and now there will be a more well-defined two-story space over that east-west leg. Then at the south end, and there's a definite and distinct separation between the north and the south, although it's pretty obvious that it is one company. But the south is the south portion requires the demolition and removal of an existing small one-story building and the construction of a warehouse that kind of mirrors the existing construction. This is primarily for the construction people, and the warehouse is for obviously warehousing of construction materials. We have, you'll notice that there are 5 passenger car size spaces and 5 truck spaces. If you've seen the operation at all, you know the fairly large, I think they're 1-ton panel truck, 3/4-ton trucks that are pretty much in and out on not on a scheduled basis, but they are in and out enough so that the resolution of the dumpster problem was made quite easily. And you all pointed out how you didn't want the dumpsters located in the front anymore. I spent a lot of time watching the operation, and it was very interesting. I've also talked with the dumpster people, and we now show 2 dumpster locations. And what happens there, if you are familiar with what happens right now, the dumpster company comes and drops a container in the middle of Livernois. They go and they get the full one. They take that and drop it in the middle of Livernois, and then get the empty one and put it back in the dumpster location. And then they go back and they pick up the full one and leave. What will happen with this is these are 2 spaces, and I've had long conversations with the dumpster people. One of those spaces will be empty so that the dumpster company can come back in and drop a dumpster on an empty space, and then just shift a little bit and pick up a full one and leave. So there's quite an improvement in that. And rather than ask for 2 spaces that would both be filled with full dumpsters waiting to be emptied, the dumpster people feel that this is a much more efficient way, just to take one out when it's full and bring an empty one. So with that, I'd like to go on to the way we've handled landscaping and the attempt to kind of bring this into bring the entire project into what you'd like to see as something up close to the front setback, to the Livernois area, to the Livernois right-of-way. It's pretty obvious that we don't want to tear down the existing building. So what we have done is tried to make that front security screen and a wall as prominent as we can. It's, I believe, an 8-foot-high screen with rolling gates, and they are substantial vertical bars. They're more decorative than what is there now, which is cyclone fencing. And I think it would more clearly draw your eye to that than the fact that there's no building there. So, but the buildings are obviously from about the middle of the site to the rear. They're on the rear property line. The north property line of the existing building is right at that line, and we'll probably need a variance request for that. So with that in mind, that pretty much covers everything. We've gotten rid of the parking that, by providing sufficient parking for all of the uses, we've gotten rid of the parking that is now in the right-of-way. Everything is behind that security fencing and gate. And we've added landscaping, landscape screening between the residential property to the north, landscape screening at the center of the Livernois frontage, and some what we hope will be pretty decent trees growing up in the center of the site and in front of the, and adjacent to the handicap spaces in front of the office facility, the commercial facility. If you have any questions,
All right.
I'm ready.
All right, thank you very much for that. Hopefully give us a refresher of where we were when we talked about this last. And I know we appreciate your efforts to better meet the intent of the ordinance. Can you speak a little bit more? I know we talked about the building, and I'm sure you looked at different options for the building siting on the property. I think a lot of the discussion at the last meeting focused on the experience of the pedestrian and people walking by on Woodward and how the building sited relates to the pedestrian experience, not wanting a whole lot of parking and things in the front. So were options considered and ruled out to bring maybe the building more focused on the north side, north property, and then have only the parking on the south, or vice versa?
A lot of the reason for putting the new building where we put it instead of up closer to Livernois, if that's your question, is because we have to resolve two things. One is we want it to be as close to the existing building as possible. It's important to be adjacent to it for obvious reasons. And then if the building were closer to Livernois, the back area would be pretty much unusable. We couldn't get to it for parking unless, as you can see, the size of the building that the company is requiring is pretty substantial, and we did want to line it up with the existing. The dumpster problem also dictated the fact that it should be back farther. There's no way that we could get the dumpsters taken care of without moving everything towards the back, towards the west.
I don't know, does anyone want to start with some questions, or? So on Livernois, so you've improved the, you have here the new decorative security fence. If I understand your drawings correctly, so that is a continuous across the entire property with the exception of the driveways, a 3-foot masonry wall with the decorative fence on top, is that correct?
Yes.
And then the landscaping that's in the middle of the property, are those raised landscape beds, or are those at grade?
No, they're at grade, but the planting.
What are you envisioning there? Like arborvitaes? Are you inviting, I guess, how tall? I guess my point is you have a 3-foot masonry wall to begin with.
Well, evergreens for sure, coniferous planting for sure, because we want it there all year round. We're not trying to hide the building in the back. We're just trying to make the front area more prominent, so that it gives more of a feeling that there's something up front.
And then the site would be secured at night with the gates?
Yes.
What about to the north? I see you have on here an existing chain link fence. And that only goes to the edge of the existing building. So when you tear down the part of the building that's there, you have kind of a gap there.
Well, there's an existing chain link fence that will go from the new one, which, we're taking down a cyclone fence. And there is a high cyclone fence now that will leave on the north property line and extend to the existing building, the northeast corner of that existing building that remains. There's a good rapport with the people who live adjacent to it, and there's a lot of greenery on that fence. I'm not sure what that is planted on it, but they have, I've been told, recommended that as much greenery as possible be left there. on the fence and actually growing on the building also. Alan?
There's trees on that property now, on the owner's property next door, in between the fence and the house. That's a brand-new cyclone fence that we just put up there. So we would probably extend that back to the building where the garages have been removed back to the original building, and then continue with the landscaping plan right straight down the way it's shown.
And in the discussion you've had with them, that's what they've wanted?
They want to have as much
Screening.
barrier, between the house and the parking lot. I mean, we've gone so far as we parked our trucks now. We used to pack them up into the parking spots, and they would start the trucks up in the morning where they would get the smoke. So we're moving them around now the other way, and we're hoping, if this thing gets approved, to get that landscaped, and it won't be an issue anymore because the trucks will be moved to the other side.
Right, well, one of the concerns I'm sure I have, and I'm sure this would have to be an ordinance regulation, Derek, that whenever a commercial operation or operation of this nature abuts single family, there needs to be a solid screening wall, not just a chain link fence. So similar to what's on Livernois, that there's the 3-foot masonry wall, and the part of the purpose of that is to block out headlights and attempt to better, absorb the sound of car doors and things of that nature. So whenever there's a use of this nature directly abutting a single-family residential district, I would think at least a 5-foot masonry wall would be required, and that was something I would probably expect because of the tight nature of these two properties. And maybe the owner today is fine with it, but who's to say the owner in 5 years would be fine with it? So.
Well, part of that, and most of that has been resolved by that planting barrier between the parking spaces and the fence.
I'm going to interrupt. I'm sorry. On that side of that of the home, if memory serves me correct, there may even be a meter there, and there may be a gas line that's run underneath there. When we put the new fence up, we had Ms. Day come out, and that her gas line runs adjacent to that fence. So I think I understand what you're saying about putting the brick wall there, but I think putting anything in there that's going to be less flexible, or there's going to be less movement with that wall to be able to get in between there.
Are you saying her utility line is on your property?
No, it's on her property.
Right, but the wall would be required to build on your property, not on her property.
I understand, but with the fence, you have the flexibility to get to that. If that brick wall's there, I'm just thinking ahead here.
Do you anticipate any concerns from?
Like I said, I think what you said at the beginning is that the ordinance requires a certain level of screening, and they'll certainly be made to meet that. I don't think a chain link fence meets that requirement. It'll be a combination of either landscape, brick, or poured concrete wall, similar to anywhere you have a direct abut. If there's a utility issue, there's ways to work our way around that, but I would be very surprised if a chain link fence would be supported by the ordinance.
Right.
Oh, well, the chain link fence plus a landscape barrier.
No, again, the chain link is not going to be a permitted use. It's either going to be a combination of vegetation and or masonry wall.
So I just want to put that out there, that again, while we're making sure we're addressing the orientation towards Livernois, we also want to address the orientation towards the neighboring properties, particularly to the north, because on the south, you're essentially looking at the side of a commercial building, but to the north, it's obviously more sensitive because of the
Sure. And then let me ask this. A masonry wall, 3 feet or 6 feet or however?
Again, that's a site plan issue that can be worked out if you guys decide to submit formal site plans. Okay. But the ordinance dictates, depending on the combination of landscaping and material, what the size must be. So most likely 6 foot is the minimum under normal circumstances.
But is landscaping required?
Again, in different combinations, yes.
Okay.
I think it would be good to have both.
And I think on that point, if we're taking down mature trees, they need a green space to replant as required.
I appreciate obviously the dumpster was a huge concern, and currently is with the operation of how that's being handled. So I think, some of the proposed improvements you're going to make are going to make an existing poor situation better, which is good. But the question is, again, I think the overriding question that we had at the March meeting was, well, is this site still the ideal site for your business? And I heard your presentation that you guys feel it is. So it's an interesting discussion. Are there other commissioners that have thoughts or comments on the plan? Or I guess I obviously haven't sat through a conditional rezoning through the city of Ferndale. Have we done one before? I'm trying to recall. If we've
Not since I've been here, no. And I don't think in the past there's been one done either.
So are they still required to get any type of variances that would be required from the MXD district?
Yeah, if they violate any of the dimensional requirements of the MXD, they would have to either first go to the BZA and receive those variances contingent on the site plan approval, or vice versa. There's no required process, but it's either one or the other. Appear here first with a site plan, if it were to be rezoned, and then, that site plan, if approved, would be contingent upon those variances, or in reverse, go to the ZBA first and have that be contingent on the site plan approval.
Do we have any idea, roughly, of the amount of variances that would be needed for the plan as proposed? I'm sure we haven't done any formal review of it.
Well, we've done a little bit, and the way it's situated right now, I don't think there's many, if any, right now.
If there, I was under the impression that existing conditions in conditional rezoning, that wouldn't require.
Again, the rezoning process doesn't deal with any of the dimensional requirements.
Right. The only thing I was thinking of is about the parking in the front yard, about not having. I'm not sure if there was an ordinance requirement on that.
Yeah, I don't know if MXD allows parking in the front yard or not.
All right, so just so understanding, I guess procedurally, if you choose to move forward based on, the discussion you get this evening, so I guess the first step would be to either go to the ZBA and get any required variances, or is that I'm trying to think.
The first step would be the rezoning, would be the conditional rezoning, because they can't ask for variances from a district that doesn't exist. So it would have to be rezoned first. Then it would be incumbent upon them to make the site plan work within those requirements.
Gotcha. Okay. Anyone else want to weigh in their thoughts?
Yeah.
Questions?
Well, I wanted to make a comment. I really appreciate your effort to address the pedestrian scale type environmental issues that we were looking at, and we really certainly don't want you to leave Ferndale, and so working hard to try to make this work for everybody. I really appreciate your screening wall. I don't know if there's enough space to put a little plants in front of the brick wall near the pedestrian or between the sidewalk or not, but that would be helpful. But I think the screening or the front gate is much better than a chain link fence, and so is really pleasing. And I really like that you've added more windows to your building. So in terms of the second design that we see here.
Any other comments? Well, you're not this quiet. We're speechless.
Well, I also wanted to
we
make
must have done a good job.
Yeah, I just also want to make a comment. I'm your neighbor over there on Farmdale. I'm at 600 Farmdale. So, and we hear the dumpsters dump onto Livernois every time, and it happens in the mornings too, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. So, I think this will be good for everybody around. It's pretty loud. So, I think this is a good solution.
It pretty much puts that operation. It surrounds it with masonry buildings.
Yeah.
And except for the front, and we've moved it as far back as we can from Livernois. So,
just for the record, as well, we've been in that building since 1975. more than just a few years. We don't want to leave Ferndale. And if we're obligated, I'm going to say if we're obligated to leave, I would have to take my other operation as well on 8 Mile, which is Excel Restoration. And I feel with the people, and we've gone from 24 people to 107 people in the 11 years that I've been there. And we have an office in Grand Rapids as well. And we bring a lot of business to the area, to the Shell gas stations, to the restaurants, and a lot of the services as well. So
I do have another question. Forgive me if you've already discussed this a little bit, but going back to the dumpster locations, what operation are you going to do to ensure that those spaces are vacant when the dumpsters are changed?
So we have 100% control of them.
Right, but where are they going to go? I mean, what
They
are there
only-
going to be like trucks that are stored there overnight? What's being parked on the south spaces?
Are you referring to where the dumpsters are located? That's going to be an enclosed facility. That'll have a fence around that.
No, this,
Yeah.
this,
Where-
what
where
she
the
wants to know.
Okay, like how many
about
vehicles do you
these
have?
trucks.
How many vehicles are on your site overnight on a given time? I mean, do you have some? And so you only have 10 spaces on that southern warehouse
Yes.
area.
But we won't be changing dumpsters at that time.
Typically, the dumpsters are changed during the day when the trucks are on the road and gone. So that parking lot is typically empty of the trucks during the day. They come back around 30 or 5 o'clock.
What time do they head out?
They get in about 7:15, 7:30, and by 8 o'clock, 8:15 is the latest. After they load up, they're gone.
What time dumpsters are usually going off? Okay, 'cause, I mean, usually those are pretty early in the morning. A lot of times
Yeah.
they kind of push the envelope and want to get done with their route, so they come earlier and earlier and earlier. Okay.
I guess I have a question, just so that I understand this a little better. Could you walk us through the activities on each site? And I guess that kind of leads to a question. I mean, these buildings could stand alone, and the site development almost stands alone. There's really not a connecting wall. The design ties them together very nicely. But could you walk us through how they operate? So one's a showroom, and the other's
Currently,
daily activities. What's the high point? What is mostly going on there?
the existing building, the current building is right now where the admin operation is handled. The offices are there on the second floor. There's a conference room that we added, I'm going to say probably somewhere around 5 years ago, if memory serves me correct. On the north side of that structure is a current warehouse, and materials are stored in there, and there's a purchasing office that's in that facility as well. As you go down the north side adjacent to the residential property, as Sam said, there's some overhead doors and storage that was built there before I got to the company in 2002. That's going away. The area that's currently, the northern area that's currently storage, we're going to turn that into as Sam said, a barrier-free showroom, above and beyond doing fire and water damage restoration, which is what we're known for. We are also the largest contractor for Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae here in the Great Lakes region. We're also a VA vendor, so this showroom is going to service people who have had accidents or vets coming home from the war who require wheelchair ramps, rolling showers, grab bars, those sort of things. There isn't a facility in Michigan that allows people to physically come in and who are physically challenged and wheelchair bound to roll into a shower and to test those things and to put their hands on them and to operate them. They just basically look at pictures and look at a mock-up at Wright and Philippus or at Benson's and they really don't have an opportunity to see how they work. So that was kind of my vision moving forward with the case managers and OTs that we work with to have this facility for people to be able to come to.
And then the daily activities on the other side?
The other side would be, we would move the materials then from the northern part of the building now to the southern part of the building. The purchasing office would also move across, as would the production office, which would be where my project managers and the laborers that drive those trucks would be situated.
So they would be coming in and getting materials and then going out and installing them and?
Delivering them to the jobs, to the carpenters and painters and our tradespeople that are out in the field that don't ever come to the office. They go directly to the job.
So it's like distribution, but you're managing the movement of it?
That's correct. There are trucks, there are people.
I guess what I'm seeing is the existing property that you own now in the new use fits within the uses probably of MXD, but then it looks like we're expanding with the new construction to the property to the south. So I'm just trying to see how they're, and would these be tied together as one site plan, one property? They couldn't be developed, like one couldn't be built and the other later on? Would they have to be built at the same time?
Well, I don't know if they'd have to be constructed at the same time. We've taken to say it's one business, one combined use. The primary use is a contractor's office. The accessory use is the use they just described along with it. But the primary use of the property is still and has historically been a contractor's office, and that's the way we've looked at it, as even if we were to purchase the additional site.
Any other questions?
How many, you said you had 107 employees, and I know they're not all at this facility, but how many employees do you need to have parking there, and as well as new visitors? Because I know the street parking is part of your parking plan as well for visitors. Is that?
I'm not aware. I mean, I don't know what's going to be on this, what's going to be available on the street once the new layout. I know there's a new plan for parking on Livernois, and I don't know what availability there is, but if you've driven down and you live in the area, so you see we occupy a lot of the parking on the street. So that's going to be, that's going to be fixed with this layout, so to speak.
Okay.
In the office, there's probably 8 or 9 admin people. On the purchasing side, there's probably 3 or 4 warehouse people.
Okay.
And the estimators come in, but they come and go. They don't stay. Project managers come and go. They come in, grab paperwork or grab materials or whatever it is, and they're out. So I'm going to guess, 15? Between 15 and 20.
Okay. I'm sensitive to parking because I want you to grow, but I also want you to have enough parking for your employees. And as we continue to redevelop this corridor under some of our new zoning, I just want to make sure that your needs will be met. And we are redoing Livernois as well, and making it more pedestrian friendly and putting bike lanes down. Right? There's no bike lanes there now, but putting bike lanes in and things like that. So there will be more types of users of the roadway along there, and I just want to make sure that you have adequate parking needs.
How many parking spaces do you have today?
Oh, gosh. I think there's 10 at the most.
10 or 11 at the most.
Okay, you're going to 23 with this.
Yeah, we show 23 here.
All right, unless anyone has any other comments, like I said, it's kind of a unique situation. Whenever you have non-conforming businesses, it's a unique situation. Obviously the intent of non-conformities is to eventually fade them out. But at the same time, you want to, as you mentioned, you want to recognize existing businesses and help support them, as long as it's done in a way that doesn't negatively impact the community. So I really would take a look again at that northern property line. I think you'd have to, at a minimum, meet ordinance standards, if not go a little above and beyond, considering the situation of it, the non-conforming being expanded. And again, take another quick glance at your Livernois Road, if there's anything else you can beef up just a little bit more, just thinking about, being a pedestrian. I'm sure, walk up and down it, walk it with your kids, or and see, what can you do to make that a more engaging atmosphere as you're walking in that area.
What are you suggesting?
Well, I know it was discussed earlier, if there's room for any vegetation, I'm sure it's pretty tight in there, but I don't know if there's room that you could put some landscaping.
Well, that was a question that I had, because the suggestion was that we put some vegetation between the masonry wall on Livernois and the fence.
Right.
I thought in reading the zoning ordinance that masonry wall was something that you wanted to have for visual purposes. And if we put vegetation there, we put it behind it, or if it, and we did form a planting bed behind it that would allow vegetation above the masonry wall. So, and I think the ordinance says something about 3 feet 3 feet high or something for the masonry wall.
For the knee wall,
At-
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so as I asked her, maybe doing some raised beds instead of being on the ground, so that the vegetation, you can see it,
Yes.
instead of just being on the ground, and looking
Well-
at anything you can enhance to the north and southerly segments.
Well, southerly, there's, if you've seen it, there's an industrial building.
No, on the property, I'm saying facing Livernois, you have this
Oh.
landscape area in the middle here, but there's nothing fronting on Livernois, north
Right,
and
just,
south of the
all we
driveway.
have there is the masonry wall. And we can, there is room, we could plant.
I don't think you need to do a lot. I mean, a place for like a mum, not a tree, not a, just something colorful,
Hydrangeas?
whatever you want. It can be low cover, right? But it's
But
just to
yeah,
add,
and then
it's just to add some sort of,
Diversity, some
Grass.
excitement.
Well, I just
To a
want to
brick wall.
remind the applicant too, if the rezoning, conditional rezoning is granted, you have to come back for a full site plan review.
Sure.
So I don't know if today's the day. I would take the comments into consideration, go back and relook at the site plan. You can modify it if you do decide to make the conditional rezoning application. If granted, then you're going to come in for a full technical review where it'll get looked at again. So I don't know
If they're going to offer anything as
Yeah.
part of it, it
Yes,
should be included now.
exactly. Yeah, so I don't know if you want to actually get into a back and forth about it, or
Yeah,
just hear the
no.
comments and then make the adjustments and take a look at it after the meeting.
What
So,
I'm hearing in the big picture is minor.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. I
Pretty it
really
up.
think so.
And then screen the north.
Yeah.
and thank you for working with us, This is a really big improvement, and I can really see it
And I guess as
working around the
staff,
corner.
yeah, and I'm sorry for interrupting. I guess as staff, my question is based on what I've heard tonight, it appears that subject to some site plan issues, some screening issues, some design issues, and being able to accommodate and address those, that the use may be something that is acceptable based on that design, if it's designed with the intent of the MXD, and then possibly move forward and notice the public hearing and bring it back for that conditional rezoning process.
I guess my only other comment would be, again, going back to the kind of the dumpster discussion and just all the activity. I'm assuming, again, we're talking a fairly busy business, successful business with a lot of coming and goings. And so I'm not sure what our noise ordinance hours are, but you may want to offer up some limitations that you're not going to be, emptying dumpsters at 5 in the morning, so that.
That never happened.
Right, but I think you put that in, putting that officially as part of your offer so that.
Yeah, the beauty of the conditional rezoning is the rezoning request, you can offer those in writing, and they'll be recorded with the property.
So if you put the
Yeah,
dumpster change out between the hours of 9 and 5.
If you were to offer those things as part of your rezoning request, they become part of the recorded document and basically a deed restriction on the property that becomes enforceable.
Or that you're not going to have people in the warehouse, 24 hours, so that it's not a 24-hour operation. So that, again, we can help ensure that while you're successful, we're also protecting the neighborhoods around you so they're not being disrupted.
The only person that's there 24/7 is me, so.
But those, you got to remember, when it comes to the actual approval of a rezoning to allow this use and allow it to expand, those type of restrictions and having them be enforceable in part of the deed restrictions give the surrounding neighbors a lever of comfort that whether it's you or you sell the business to somewhere else, that those operational items are controlled in perpetuity. And so offering them up as part of that rezoning allows the neighbors and affords them that comfort level.
So I would include in your submittal a narrative of your operations, including anything that you would be committing to, not, hours or maximum number of employees, whatever you think operationally that you can abide by without any heartburn, that would help make this and not have negative impacts on the community.
Looking at it, I don't think it has a negative impact now. I think it's an upgrade on what's there.
Oh, I don't think anyone's going to argue with you on that. Yeah. All right,
It's an upgrade on the property to the south as well.
Yeah.
You've seen the property to the south. It's in dire need of some work. So.
All right, well, any other comments, then I guess good luck, and I'm guessing we'll probably be seeing you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the next step is the conditional rezoning request.
Yep, the application, the formal application with any conditions you wish to offer based on what you've heard here and at the previous meeting.
You wouldn't have one handy, would you?
No, they're available on our website, though.
Okay,
So
good.
if you can't find one, get a hold of myself or Barb, and we'll have one sent out to you.
Okay, who does that go before?
Planning Commission first, and then the City Council.
Okay, good.
Any other questions?
A lot of them, but
Okay, tomorrow.
we'll go
Or
through
Monday.
it.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Thank you. All right, we don't have anything for new business discussion items this evening, which brings us to call the audience, and I see we have some visitors here this evening. Anything you'd like to address to the commission?
Carl Rosenblatt, 197 West Camborne. I was wondering if this is the proper venue to discuss the construction on Camborne and Woodward that is currently going on. We have a plethora of different questions about the site itself and the requirements and whether or not they're being fulfilled. Is this the proper forum?
Well, I guess it depends on the nature of your comments. The Planning Commission is a reviewing body of, as you just heard, site plans and potential development, additions, and things of that nature. So this Planning Commission did review and approve a site plan for that development. The actual construction and permitting and things of all that nature is handled through our Community Development Department. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to speak with our staff about some of your concerns or questions. Because the day-to-day, again, I'm not sure the nature of your questions. If there's noise, construction, that would all be handled through staff.
Well, and whoever's going to speak, guys, one at a time, and identify yourself in the microphone for the record. The meeting's taped and there's minutes generated, so.
Dominic. Camborne resident. I go by Dominic, but my real name's Brad. Basically listening to what those gentlemen just presented, your main concerns was a dumpster, correct? A couple of you guys? Well, they have a dumpster that's going in right in front of where I live. Okay. And they have common sense is there's a big space, and the dumpster for some reason has to face all the residential houses. Instead, in the back, there's an alley and there's no houses. So I don't mind I'm happy that the land's getting developed, but I mean, who wants to look at a compactor or a dumpster when it's facing the most residential houses? I just want to know who made that, check off or anything, and if it's for a dump truck guy's job to be easier, that's not right if people have to live there and smell it. And we all know people throw their trash in it and then it falls. I just don't know why it can't be where there's no houses and it's right in front of West Camborne. That's all.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll take your comments, and maybe Derek can set up a meeting. Have you looked at the approved plans for the property?
Yeah, actually the foundation's already pulled for the dumpster, so they're already going to put it in there. I understand there is going to be a wall in front of the dumpster.
Right, the site plan's approved.
Correct.
I mean, so they're constructing something based on an approved site plan that was approved at this body. Just looking at the approved site plan, the gates, the orientation of the dumpsters is towards the back of the commercial building. So
that's facing all the houses in West Camborne, the dumpster.
No, the gate is facing Woodward.
No.
So it might be a construction dumpster versus the...
Yeah,
no, there's a dumpster in the parking lot that's facing the houses.
Right. Well, I mean, maybe after the meeting, if we can go over the approved plans, we can sit down with you one-on-one, or staff can, maybe if you want to set up a meeting with them. But the approved plans show a dumpster with an orientation with gates opening towards basically the Woodward and Camborne intersection. And so if there's concerns that the site's not being constructed in accordance with the approved plans, then I would discuss that with staff. But really, at this Planning Commission, at this point, our job is really done on that site because we reviewed the plans. But as you heard, we are very sensitive to, we're all residents
I know
of
you
Ferndale.
guys probably, that's why it boggles me, because the dumpster is right in front of my house. And there's 5 or 6 of them right across the street. From here to you would be the dumpster on the houses on West Camborne. If you put it in the other side of the parking lot, there are no houses.
I understand. You know what? I think we I misunderstood what dumpster you were talking about, because at the site plan review meeting that this planning commission talked about was about the permanent dumpster for the new business.
Correct.
You're talking about the construction dumpster, which is temporary, which is leaving.
No, I'm not.
No, maybe I can clarify. First of all, there is no dumpster. There's a compactor. Well, no, it's a very different thing. It's a closed system with no open doors, and it's kept locked, and it is actually a very different animal. During the planning commission meeting, the dumpster location is located adjacent to the southern property line. It's screened by an 8-foot wall that tears down to a 6-foot wall for the entire runnable length of Camborne, except for where we need site clearance for driveways and sidewalks. The wall has to be stopped. But other than that, it's screened completely, and will be screened on all 3 sides with a gate and wood gate, standard as to the ordinance. We went back and looked. I mean, as part of the planning commission record, there's houses immediately adjacent on every side of that property.
No, not on the north side. There's more.
Again, on the north side, you get much closer to the resident who lives immediately adjacent to the west, which is 161 West Lewiston. So no matter where you move the dumpster on site, it gets closer to an individual residential.
There's more houses facing our side.
If it's a numbers thing, that's fine. You're correct. There's more numbers across Camborne, but if you put it on that side of the site, you would actually be half as far from that woman's house as it is from yours. So during the process and the site plan process, this was all discussed at some great length. The center of the site is encumbered by underground or stormwater where you can't put the oversized pipes that are underground, which need access and the ability to fix. You can't put a permanent dumpster pad over those locations. The dimensional requirements to put it on the northern half of the site leave it about 30 feet from 161 West Lewiston's front window, which is half again as far as it is from across the houses from Camborne. We have spoke to several residents. We'd be glad to sit down with the site plan and show them the actual dimensions.
I've talked to the whole block on my side. None of you guys. This was all swept through the rug. Like, I had to go there and see what was going on.
Sir, if I could, again, we'd be happy to sit down with you one-on-one. This is kind of a public meeting. We'll take your comments.
Yeah, but no one said anything to the residents that what was going on across the street.
Statutorily, there are state rules regarding when we need to publish a notice to neighbors, and there are rules, like a rezoning requires notice, a special land use, a commercial building that's permitted by right is the term, is permitted without public notice to all the properties, because there's new commercial that's constructed all over the place. But I understand that there are some discussions about policy about changing that.
As a planning commission, I'm sorry that you guys represent the residents. So my understanding is you guys would come and talk to us and say, hey, what do you think about a dumpster being here? And no one did that or anything like that. Instead of just, it seems like you guys just seen the blueprint from the company and signed off on it without, connecting with us.
Sir, I'm sorry you feel that way. We're all volunteer residents. We all live in the community who have full-time jobs. This is not feasible to go out to every single project and every single.
Well, this is a pretty.
Which I understand.
You guys don't have to live in front of it, so.
I understand your concerns.
Okay.
We'll look at maybe some policy changes to better alert the neighbors. But, as always, we encourage residents to stay abreast of what's going on. Agendas are posted on our website. We do as much as we can to keep government transparent, and the information's there for those who want to find it.
There was no public hearing or nothing on this?
No, nor is one required at this time.
Yeah, so, it just doesn't make any sense that the dumpster's right in front of all the houses, and so, you're worried about Lewiston House, and there's the whole block.
Right. Well, sir, I think, like I said, if you want to sit down after the meeting or another time with staff, I'm sure they'd be happy to go through the.
Neighbor talk.
I'm sure. Is there anything new you'd like to address, sir?
No, I'm done. Thank you.
Anything new, sir?
That's only one of the things that I wanted to talk about. I want to get my thoughts here because I just pretty much got destroyed on that. How long has the site been approved? Or put it this way, how long did you take before you approved the plan that was given to you?
What?
Like, let's say they come to you and they submit the plan.
Sure, there's a process that's handled through our staff. I think a lot of your questions would probably be best addressed at a meeting, or sitting down with staff. when a person comes in for an application, there's a thorough application that they must go through and review at a staff level, and staff usually thoroughly vets a plan before it even comes to the Planning Commission, and that could take many months. By the time a plan actually makes it to the Planning Commission, it's been reviewed at a staff level to ensure that it meets our ordinances and brings it to the Planning Commission at a level that should be.
So how long did it take you guys to approve it?
I'm not sure how to answer your
question. Once
question.
it was submitted to you, once you had the plans in front of you and you could look to see what was available and what they wanted to do, how long did it take before you approved it?
I'm going to answer this question, and then I want to make clear that this is not a Q&A session. So if you have questions or concerns, I'll encourage you to set up a meeting with our staff. But common to most plans that come before the Planning Commission, by the time they're thoroughly vetted through a staff review, they're usually approved within one meeting of coming to the Planning Commission after much discussion like you just saw.
Okay.
So are there any other comments you'd like to have? Otherwise, I think I want to move this to a
No,
meeting.
I don't have comments. I have questions. And one of my next question, if I may, perhaps this isn't the venue for asking questions, but the thing is I would like to know where that would actually come into play. When can this action plan be questioned? When can we sit down with somebody and talk about what was approved and why it's not actually going as the way it was approved? Because, well, here's the other question. There's supposed to be a final site approval, right? Because you guys approved a plan, but now I find out that it's not even going to be going according to that approval process. Like the wall that is supposed to be between the parking lot and our homes is not the way that it was said it was supposed to be. There's supposed to be a wall completely across Camborne, separating Camborne from the parking lot completely. All other parking lots in Ferndale follow this. Not only that, there's no parking lots where they empty out onto a street. They go into an alley, and the alley empties out into both streets. So, according to you guys, you approved a process saying that all headlights would be screened from houses, all spray, and that wall is supposed to be 6 feet tall. And now I'm hearing that as throwing a bone to us so that we won't say anything is, oh, they're going to extend the wall a little bit. But there's supposed to be an outlet onto the street of Camborne. Now, why is this? That wasn't a part of the approval process. So why am I hearing that? Is this wrong? Or is there going to be a wall all the way across Camborne?
Sir, I'm not sure where you're getting information. I don't know the answers to your questions. We've approved a plan. Staff then takes from that. There's construction drawings. There's things that are handled at a staff level, and I think your best venue is to sit down with staff. The Planning Commission is a public forum. There's really not a question, answer, debate type format.
Well, where does that happen then?
You would contact staff and you would speak directly with staff. I think that would be the most.
Who is staff?
Derek Delacourt.
Derek, okay. And will I have a final approval plan available that I could look at?
All plans are public information, so you could.
Where can I look at that?
At City Hall, right here in this building.
I could have one available, or does it stay here?
You have to. If you would like to take one home with you, you need to fill out a FOIA request, which is Freedom of Information Act. There's some fees usually associated with reproduction and things of that nature. So if you would like to take one home with you, but if you'd like to just view it here at City Hall, I'm sure that can be made arranged for you.
So I'm going to understand that you guys approved this process. Are you aware of what the EPA said about it? Are you aware of any kind of digging that has been going on since 1986? Are you aware that it used to be part of Jim Ashmore's property, where he had gasoline, oil, and other cleaning products which were being dumped into the sewer and onto the property itself?
Right, sir,
according to this...
Sir, I'm just going to cut you off at this point. As I discussed, I think you're bringing up a lot of questions that we can't answer at this point. This is something that was approved at the Planning Commission. We can't undo that. We can't change that. We can't modify that. So this discussion right now I don't think is leading to anything that's going to make you satisfied or take
All right.
this to a new level. So
Well,
I'm
I
gonna
just need a yes or no
Sir,
on this.
I'm going to continue discussing that. I think the best recommendation I have for you would be to set up a meeting with staff and have all your questions and concerns, and they can answer them to the best of their ability and provide a plan for you to look at.
Will
I don't think
staff
there's
be part
anything
of
else-
public record?
Part of public record. I'm not.
And what is what we're saying here part of public record?
It's a public meeting, yes.
Okay, would staff be considered part of public record?
It is not an open public meeting, no.
Okay, well, I want to ask this question because I want it part of public record.
Okay, well, this will be your last one. We usually call the audience, keep it to about a 2-minute
right.
minimum, but we've been very flexible here, so I'm going to go ahead and take this.
Are you kidding me?
I'm sorry, 2 minutes.
All right, for like half an hour, you guys have talked about planting flowers, and I'm talking about something that's more important than that.
Sir, that was an
All right,
applicant.
the old man sat there and talked
Sir.
for 10 minutes about whether or not there was going to be plants in
Excuse me.
between the silly sidewalk, okay? You can bang your gavel all you want. My
clearly.
question to you is, did you guys all approve this plan without an EPA report? There
No,
have been
we have an
5
EPA report.
containers, and only 4 of them have been approved. One of them hasn't been approved, and there's no soil samples.
Sir, I'm
So
going to ask
this
you once
is
again.
considered a brown area, and you guys haven't even discussed any of this.
I will make the Planning Commission aware that the applicant has filed a Phase 1, Phase 2 baseline environmental assessment and is operating under an approved due care plan with the DEQ, all of which we have available for anybody who'd like to take a look at it. I think the chair has asked that that be the last question. We can make all that environmental available to you at any time. They have filed the complete process with the DEQ and have an approved due care plan for the handling of soil and equipment on the site. We can make all of that available to you.
I'm going to file an injunction. Good night.
All right, thank you. All right, I'm assuming there's no other call to audience. Administrative items.
30 minutes about whether or not a site looks good, but you don't care about trash, contamination.
This is, wow. All right.
Yeah, he's been,
I'm glad I
this has been
Yeah,
going on.
definitely. I was unaware. I was like, whoa. I mean, I'm still a little whoa.
Well, that's the
Whoa.
most excited I've seen him get so far, but
I
he's
am-
been in a couple of,
Yeah.
we've spent a great deal of time with some of the other residents, and they understand the process and how the dumpster, the compactor got moved around the site.
And they're okay
all the,
with
yeah,
that?
well, not everybody's happy, but not everybody's going to be happy. I mean, based on the approval process, we've been, basically, it's been reduced to Mr. Rosenblatt as the only concerned property owner we hear anymore, which is usually, you're always going to have 1 or 2 who are pretty
Is
upset
that
with the
Mr., is that Brad or Derek, or the guy that was
Ken.
escorted out?
The last one was Mr. Rosenblatt.
Okay.
Ken.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, administrative items. Just real quickly, we're progressing on the multimodal plan. It's coming along very nicely. Ms. Piana's been on there. Mr. Forrest has been involved in it as well. We did recently just send out an email today with a survey that we're hoping everybody will take. As part of that survey, the nice part is there is a community remarks tool attached to it that if you, at the end of the survey, you click on, and it's actually an interactive mapping component that you can comment on different places in the city, regardless of the mode of transportation, where you'd like to see improvements. You can attach photos. If you see broken pieces of sidewalk, things where there should, places where there should be improvement, we would encourage you guys to take it. And then please pass it along to anybody else, not just those who live in the city, but anybody who interacts with the downtown, anybody who interacts with the community as a whole. Pass it along. We're interested in what everybody thinks and what would be their preference as they move about Ferndale. The advisory committee branded the project. Basically, it's going to be called Ferndale Moves. And this is just the first survey that's going out. There's been a lot of initial information gathering and existing conditions analysis. But very shortly after this survey is done, I would imagine we're going to be in front of the Planning Commission in short order to give you guys an update on where we're at with the process. So
We're looking for 200 responses. That's what the Norm Cox from the consulting company said, is that that's what they need in terms of having a good representation of what people want. So send it on to your neighbors and friends and anybody else that you encounter.
we have started the process too. We've started to engage some people about how we want to do the next master land use plan update. We know the Planning Commission has identified at least one topic for discussion regarding density within the CBD and how that's going to be evaluated. The Woodward Avenue alternatives analysis is quickly coming to closure. The Woodward Complete Streets project is coming closed. So, and then we already know there's already the TOD plan that was adopted. So there will be many things to consider already on the table as part of the Master Land Use Plan update. As staff, we would also like to reevaluate the zoning districts for the two historically industrial areas, especially the one that's north of 9 Mile. And we're actually considering looking into doing a separate sub-area plan, or recommending that the Planning Commission take a look at that as part of the Master Land Use Plan update. We feel there's a lot of potential there, similar to the rail district in Birmingham, and with the economy picking up, we're already seeing a desire from the market to take some of those older industrial buildings and turn them into office or flexible space. So we feel it's probably the appropriate time to reevaluate that zoning district as well. So those, along with the master land or the multimodal plan, we think would be excellent components for the master land use plan update.
And I think we talked also about updating the Hazelmers
Yep.
sub-area plan,
Yep.
obviously.
I did want to mention for the Complete Streets and Woodward Alternative Analysis, they were going to have their last public outreach meeting in October, which was going to show all the design options for bus rapid transit, but that's been moved to December today, I found out. And I want you to know that SEMCOG has been leading its discussion for Ferndale with a bus rapid transit dedicated lanes in the median, removing our current median and putting in bus rapid transit, but at the same time expanding the sidewalks, putting in a cycle track both ways, and putting some more type of landscaping on the sides of the bus rapid transit. I've asked for other options because we need more than one to comment on, and I just wanted to let you know that that's you should probably see them before council approves and adopts the plan.
I forget as part of the plan, are they planning on going to individual planning commissions or no?
No.
Well,
I'm the last to know, and I'm on that steering committee. Don't put
well,
that
I
in
am
the
as well,
public
so I
record.
didn't say, I haven't seen, if they haven't, then we can make arrangements.
Yeah,
to
sorry,
either
Kevin's
have
not
them
here,
or-
so I can say.
We can either have before that, long before December, we can have either them here to present it or find a way to present that to you so you guys can make comment on it before going to council.
But overall, on the Complete Street sides, the business owners that came out today for an additional one, when they see the sort of overlay of the new designs onto the existing Woodward corridor, I mean, they were so excited and applauded about what could change on the corridor. So,
Yeah, even I don't know how you feel now, but even from a resident standpoint, if even half of it becomes reality, I mean, it's exciting to think about.
Can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
Are those business owners up and down the corridor or just Ferndale?
The alternative analysis is going to have a different treatment for bus rapid transit based on the needs of that corridor. So what will be Ferndale and Pleasant Ridge will probably be the same, but then after the zoo, the shape of the street changes, and then we get down to Bloomfield Township. They don't really want anything there.
People in our community.
Yeah, except Cranbrook. And then, so we've been very deliberate and very focused on helping understanding the needs of each community, but letting the consultants come up with the design concepts and getting back to them. It will be interesting to see what each community approves at the end of this process, because it won't get built if one community even doesn't support it, so it will be harder.
Any other, I guess, administrative items?
None that I can think of.
Commission items?
Are we meeting on Thursdays now?
Yeah. You were at the last, you were at the last meeting.
Because
Because of the courthouse, they have people's court.
They have night.
People's court. Night court.
Yeah, night court, whatever. Court on Wednesday night. We got a bump.
Okay.
So we're going to meet on Thursdays until the courthouse was done.
We've got about another year.
Yeah, and sorry about, that
did a
took me
great
by
job.
surprise. I want to be more forceful, but I want to
You
be
did a
nice
great
and
job.
critical. But
No, I thought
No,
you did a great
that
job.
was coming no matter what you did.
well, I know, but it's just
Yeah.
like,
I wish I was a little more, I don't want to say stronger, but I don't know, it's hard to
No,
like
it's just
shut
fine.
them down.
But I wanted to like answer, because I know it can be frustrating. If you're frustrated, you just want some answers. I'm like, well, we can give you an answer then, but like, that's not.
He's been provided answers on
So
several
have they
occasions.
contacted you at all? Because I feel bad, and I feel
Yes.
bad to say like, meet with staff, meet with
Yes.
staff.
But
He
we
doesn't,
would-
he wants change to happen, and it's not going to happen, so he's questioning the process and trying to find holes in the process to prove his point. Everybody else and the homeowners that Derek has met with, they understand.
So has he seen the plan?
No.
He hasn't come in and met with me. We've offered it. It's been offered to him. He's met with April. He's come in and just shown up and demanded to see the city manager. And what his initial attack was he just wanted her to tell them to move it, or tell us to tell him. And what was explained to him that, that was a public process, and, that the planning commission had said it and considered it, and that we didn't have the authority to. Then he wanted council to change it, and that was explained that council doesn't have the authority to change. Yeah,
It's done.
Yeah, unless both parties agree to a revised location, and which really should come back for an amended plan.
I don't think he understands how worse it could have been.
And you heard the argument change quickly from the other gentleman in that they don't believe it. If you move it to the other side, it does get significantly closer to a woman's house who directly abuts the site. And then the argument quickly changes to, well, it's not a matter of distance. There's more houses over here and less houses over there. So it's okay to move it closer to hers, just move it away from mine.
So if the wall gets built, will he, so is it a matter of just the wall not being?
Did they not
No,
understand
the wall's
that it will
getting
be
built.
screened?
Yeah,
Like,
it'll be screened as much as it
what does he
physically
say the
lets.
wall's changed from what you approved?
He's not
They're
understanding.
just
the
full of facts, or mistruths.
Well, he's upset. Instead of just being the only curb cut to Camborne being from the alley, there's a second one just east of there where that opening, obviously you can't spray from headlight spray, and it is adjacent to residential properties. It is, and it was, and that's one of the difficult parts when you have the traffic circulation issues on the site and getting people safely on and off. But they did. Even the applicant, extended the screening wall above what the original approved site plan was, and that may be their issue, is that the plans that have been published by the media are the original approved ones. Based on some of the residents' concerns, we called them and asked them to extend that screening wall 18 feet to the east and about 12 feet to the west, or 18 feet to the west and 12 feet to the east.
That's what he was
But
talking
I
about.
bet I'm surprised we didn't catch that ourselves. Like,
Well,
like
it's
shame on us
well-
letting
it's well
12 feet of not screened area.
Well, it was screened. I mean, it has landscaping and other things. They're going to end up with a big brick wall, which truthfully I'm not sure is any more aesthetically pleasing than what was originally approved. But since the majority of them seem to prefer that, we asked the applicant and they extended it. Whether it was missed or not, I know that was discussed at that compactor location, because originally it was an open dumpster proposed, and it was you guys, if I remember correctly,
Right.
that required that to be changed to a compactor, because as you went through the site looking for alternative locations, there really wasn't a better one. So then it came back to, why don't we have it be a compactor instead of a dumpster? So.
All right. Well, that was a first for me, having.
I think you did a wonderful
He handled
job,
it very well.
Yeah, I think so too.
All right.
and I'm glad I warned you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, anything else?
I just had one thing. This should be my last meeting. I think, I have to step down because I've had a new job for about a year, and as I've become trained in that type of thing and have more responsibility, part of that is travel, and I don't always have a week notice, and I don't want that to negatively impact, our ability to meet or make decisions. So if you know somebody, I don't know if you found anybody yet, but
A guy's got a PhD in. This city is ridiculous with its planners. There's a guy who got a PhD from Cornell in planning and zoning who was a planner in Mexico City.
Bring him on.
wow.
I mean, no.
Well, you guys are in good hands.
No, I'm.
I will
I
send
can't
you
tell you
go.
the staff how.
We'll see you around town. Yes.
You enjoyed your time here?
Yes.
Yes, thank
That
you
was an
very much.
exciting last meeting. No, I really did. I really enjoyed, being a part of it, and, I love Ferndale. I've lived here a long time, too, so it was great to, be a part of this process. And I'll still be around. Yes, thank you. And you'll still see me like this weekend at DIY. So thank you, everybody.
In December, too, so let Barb know offline if you plan to re-up or want us to start to.
Sure.
Thank you.
If I want to chair, feel free.
Not after that.
All right.
Are we good?
Yeah.
Yep.
And congratulations on your new job.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I might have some potential conflicts, too. I'll have a conflict well, if we meet every month.
Yeah.
I have a third Thursday meeting 6 times a year.
Well, we're second Thursday.
Yeah, this is second Thursday.
Or maybe second, maybe, no, it's third Thursday, never mind, just kidding. No, it is third Thursday.
You're good.
Never mind. I think it's third Thursday. Thanks.
Then with that excuse.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm still the new girl, and I hate being
No,
new
second,
girl.
I meant second.
No, whatever, no, it's next week, so yeah, never mind. All right, because it used to be the third Thursday, because we were complaining because it was third Thursdays, and that was the DDA thing. Never mind, thank you. And, all right, with that, we're adjourned.
All right, if everybody wants to hold on, I'm going to have an officer out in the
Well,
parking
and
lot, just to make sure they're not waiting out there to call.
And I do have a question, I'm going to be that commissioner for a second. I hate being that commissioner. The Taco Bell on Woodward, I know we had discussion about them reducing their light poles.
15 feet.
Oh, 16, but maybe it's 18.
Started at 20.
Are you sure? I thought it was the nameplate. So I
Go
went
back to
to
that.